Hello and welcome to Mind Flux's Synth series. My name is Michael Penman, and today what we're going to be looking at is creating an analog techno bass using Native Instruments' brand new Massive X. So this bass will be perfect for anyone wanting to do some deep tech, melodic techno, as well as some Roland main room techno. So to start with, obviously, we need to load Massive into a spare MIDI track. Remember, to create a spare MIDI track is Shift-Command-T, and I've just loaded in Massive X. So the first thing with Massive X is you need to sort out the routing. There is a blank template which sorts out the routing as well as gives you some macros, which you can see here. It's already sorted, but I want to start from scratch because this is not how I want my Massive X to be routed. So I'm going to click on the top title bar where the name is, go down to Quick Start and hit Initial Blank. And as you can see, the routing matrix is being completely defaulted. So there'd be absolutely no sound if I hit the keyboard. So what I'm wanting from this is to have 3 oscillators plus a sub. So in total 4. And as you can see, it appears we only have 2. But using the inserts, we can use those to curate 2 or 3 more. So let's just create a little bit more space to fit them both in. You don't need to have it like this, but I just want to have it nice and clean. And then that is going to go into our filter. The sub isn't though. So first I'm going to route the sub, which I'm going to have as B, straight into the main output. And from there, the other oscillators are going to go straight into our filter. From there, what I would like is that to go into insert C. And then that goes into our X effect. So just a few little things before we move on. I just want to set up the pulse modulation as well as the feedback modulation. Send the pulse modulation from the oscillator. And also have that feeding back into here. So now we should at least, if I hit the keyboard, have some sound. Good. So that's a good start. I have created some MIDI clips. One is for a longer bass line. And you may notice we're not actually getting any sound from some of the 0 octave notes. And this will be quite common when you open up Massive X, and it's not what I want. And the reason being is if we click on our P1, which is our performer one, and we go into the performer routing window, we can see that the remote to remotely control these different performer scenes is set from C0 to C1. So anything in the 0 octave will be on this remote to trigger the performer scene. So I'm just going to shift it all the way down there. So now if I press play again, and then I've got a shorter bass line as well. And if you would like these MIDI loops, you can download those at www.mind-flux.com and just navigate to the blog section and this blog post. So now let's go back to the main Massive X screen. And what we're going to want to do is start by just putting it into mono. So I'm going to go to voices and I'm going to click mono. So that's good. And now I'm going to set up oscillator 1 and 2. I'm just going to leave it on saw. I really like that. And then I'm going to set this one to square. So set oscillator 2 to squared. And then I'm going to push up the squared. But let's just do that while we're listening, because we might not want the level full. Now let's look at slightly detuning the bass. As you can see, I'm sending one positive and one negative. If you go too far, it'll be too detuned, but at these settings, it sounds very nice. I also want to look at using the LFO to modulate the phase of our square wave. So I'm going to use LFO 4. I'm going to click the 4 arrows and I'm going to drop that in the phase section. And then I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. This is exactly the same as the original Massive's matrix system. I would like LFO 4 to be on sine wave to keep it quite smooth, and I want the rate to be relatively slow. That's just adding a nice bit of modulation. So talking about modulation, I want to use the phase modulation at some point, and that, because these are switched on, when I turn this up, we'll start to get some phase modulation. And what could be kind of cool is to actually set this to our mod wheel. So up here in the left-hand corner, you have pitch bend, modulation wheel, and aftertouch. So I'm going to click the modulation wheel, and I'm just going to set that on the actual parameter knob rather than one of these slots. And that means now when I turn the modulation wheel, it just goes from all the way 0 all the way to full. So if you wanted this to have a range like we did with our LFO 4, you might just want to drop it in the slot. But I just want to be able to switch it on and off at various different mounts. So now we're ready to set up our sub and our extra oscillator. So on insert slot A, I'm going to click where it says off and I'm going to go down to OSC. And I'm going to have this as saw, but what I'm going to do is shove it up to the 5th note in your scale. So this is 7 semitones. As well, just put a little bit of detune in there. If you feel like it's too much, bring down the mix a little bit. Again, let's apply that phase. And I'll just send it in the opposite direction as the square wave. Now for our sub. So again, same principle, click on B, click OSC. This time I want to change the waveform. So just click on the actual viewer and you'll get a drop-down menu and click saw. And again, I want this now to be an octave below these notes. I think now we're ready for our filter. So F is the filter section. I'm going to click here and you can see you've got a nice range of different filter types. And one of my favorites is the Blue Monarch one. I'm going to set the resonance just to around about 45% and the frequency probably between 10 and maybe 50, but this is something I'm going to want to add to a macro as well as the aftertouch as well as an envelope. So first of all, let's add it to macro 1. So again, I'm going to click the number 1 and like with the modulation wheel, I'm just going to drop it on there. And it's nicely called it, so I can use this macro to control it. Let's also, while we're here, send the keyboard tracking up a bit, so when we play higher notes, the filter opens. And let's do the aftertouch as well. And if you're not entirely sure what aftertouch is, what it is when I hold a note, I can also press down. And in this case, when I'm pressing down, it opens up the filter. This, again, you need a keyboard or pads which can actually do this aftertouch. I'm using Native Instruments Complete keyboard, which is very nice for this. Okay, so back to our sequence. Let's use envelope 2 to modulate the frequency cutoff. So So I'm just going to make sustain all the way down, and then again I'm probably going to want to have more control on these, and I'll use the macros to do that. So before I do that, I'm going to map 2 to resonance, and then I'm going to map 3 to peak, which is going to be the filter envelope amount. So I'll just rename that. It's 4 to be the decay, and I want the release to be controlled as well. This time you see I've dropped it into a macro slot, and one of the main reasons I've done that is, say for example I take this decay, and because it's been put onto a parameter knob, if I try and add another one, it'll say you can't. So if you want to have more than 2 on one macro, you have to use the slots below the parameter. And let's just name these correctly. Decay, and obviously not frequency, that's release. Okay, I'm just going to go to our other MIDI clip to see what it sounds like in longer notes. I often like to test my sounds with 2 different kind of MIDI clips, one being longer, one being shorter, just to kind of see if it can translate to those 2 styles. So last thing I want to do in the insert section is just add the wave folder. This is great as an effect to bring in occasionally. It might be a bit raw at the moment, so if we just play, yeah. So I'm going to want to put the mix, and that might be something we want to bring into the breakdown or something like that. I'm just thinking for this preset about the future, so let's just pull that down just now because it didn't sound 100% amazing, but I do like it to destroy the sounds. And now we're on to the amp envelope. As you can see, modulator 1 or envelope 1 is dedicated to the amp envelope. All I want to do here is have the velocity control the amplitude level. And these T ones are your kind of keyboard stuff, like your note pitch, velocity on and off, gate, and inverse gate. I'm just going to keep it pretty standard and keep it on velocity on, clicking it, and that'll control it fully. I think now we're ready for the effects section. So really what I want to do is maybe just beef up the lower end, and we can do that with 2 controls. We can use the EQ with a little bass boost, nothing too huge. Then move on to our second effect, which I will use Nonlinear Labs, just like your tube stuff. And what I want to use is just a bit of soft clipping, drive it a bit, and then just pull the mix down. Lastly, let's have a spatial effect, and for this I would like to use our delay. Because I want it more analog, I'm going to keep it unsynced, and I'm just going to change the setting to warm. Okay, and then we'll want to be able to control that. So I'm going to use this bottom slot because I want to be able to map the range, because I don't really want it to go over 50%. So there you have it. We have created an analog techno style bass sound using Native Instruments' brand new Massive X. And if you've enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe to our channel and set the alerts if you would like to be updated as soon as we've uploaded a new video. And if you're looking for any sample packs, preset packs, please head over to www.mind-flux.com.